Hi, my name is Konstantin Baum and I'm a master of wine. It's time to talk about wine prices. Why are some bottles dirt cheap while others are as expensive as a new car? And is it actually possible to taste the difference between the bottom shelf discount wine and the class growth Bordeaux? These are questions that millions of people ask themselves every day, and I'm trying to answer them. This is why I asked my wife to prepare 3 different bottles of wine for me to taste blind in order to see whether I can separate the super cheap from the super premium. So let's go. Wine is unique. Per definition, it has to be an alcoholic beverage made from fermented grape juice. It's therefore a pretty simple product that has been made in the same way for thousands of years, even though scientific advances have changed the process over the last few centuries. Looking at it from the simplistic viewpoint, one might wonder why there are such big differences in price if all wines are technically the same. What makes wine special, though, is that 2 bottles of wine from the same grape variety and the same region can cost anything from $1 to $10,000 a bottle. You have to bear in mind that a bottle that costs $1 has a different cost structure than a bottle that is priced for the super premium segment of the market, and that only a small share of the price you pay for a bottle of wine actually goes to the producer. The majority goes to taxes, retailer margin, packaging costs, and logistics. But check this out. UK wine retailer Baum recently released some interesting information on this topic. On a retail 10-pound bottle of wine, only 2.7 pounds, or roughly 27% of the price, would actually go to the wine itself. For a bottle half that price, which would be 5 points obviously, only 0.31 pounds, or 6% of the price of the bottle, would actually go to the wine. So while there's clearly a minimum of how much you can spend on producing a bottle of wine, there's also a maximum. And depending on different factors, I would say that the maximum cost for viticulture and winemaking is roughly $50 per bottle of wine. So why are some bottles more expensive than a few $100? At some point, the price of a wine loses its connection to the quality level and is more dictated by the demand for that wine. A wine that costs $10 is not 10 times worse than a wine that costs $100 unless the winemaker really messes up. When you draw the graph of the relationship of the price of the wine and the quality based on ratings by wine critics, it looks a little bit like this. At first, the quality increases quickly. While the price increases, more income also means that the winemaker is able to invest more into his wine. The correlation gets weaker and weaker, and at some point there's no real connection anymore between the price and the quality. The graph will look different for different wine styles, and I've been to many tastings where the cheaper wine was actually better than the more expensive wine. For example, a great Muscadet next to a bad white Burgundy. But I've made a whole video on wine scores and wine ratings, so check that out if you want to go down that rabbit hole. So are we actually able to detect the differences in quality if we do not see the label? And is it therefore worth spending more for a great bottle of wine? The answer is yes and no. There are a number of different studies that looked at this topic of whether wine consumers and wine professionals can detect the difference between a cheap and an expensive wine. Even here on YouTube, there are a number of different videos that looked at this. One of the most widely watched ones is from Vox and is titled "Expensive Wine is for Suckers." These tastings are a bit silly if you ask me. Asking untrained consumers to rate the quality of a wine in a blind tasting is a little bit like asking a guy off the street to rate the quality of an abstract painting or the quality of a leather purse. But still, people are more than happy to spend hundreds or even thousands of dollars on a bag from a famous brand. In my experience, it's definitely possible for a knowledgeable wine taster to identify the quality of a wine in a blind tasting. For my Master of Wine exam, I had to do exactly that, and I found it easier than identifying the region of origin or the grape variety, for example. So now it's time to find out whether expensive wine is actually for suckers. My wife prepared these 3 wines for me. They are all from the region of Bordeaux. One is cheap, one is in the middle, and one is expensive. So let's see whether I can find out which one is which. So first of all, they all kind of look the same. The color is pretty much the same in all 3 of them. The first wine smells quite nice. It smells of ripe cherries. There's a little bit of cassis there. It's more dominated by the fruit flavor rather than anything that might be from barriques or the maturation of the wine. On the palate, it's quite astringent, harsh tannins, not a lot of roundness here. Feels quite young and vibrant, but it's not well integrated. Things are kind of, not harmonious. Let's try number 2. So wine number 2 smells of Cassis, blackberries. It's very refined. There's also some oak there. I definitely can sense some impact of the barriques, the small wooden barrels. The wine is still fresh and vibrant, but it doesn't feel like it's super young. I'd say it has some years of age behind it already. So on the palate, the wine has ripe tannins, good freshness and vibrancy. It still feels young, even though I just said that it has some age on it already. This is an indicator of quality, because if a wine is able to age for multiple years without really feeling tired and overly aged, then it's probably a wine that can last for a long time, which is a quality indicator, definitely. So let's move on to number 3. So wine number 3 is quite a fresh, vibrant young wine. It smells of red currants, black currants. There's also some cherry flavors there. It's quite youthful. On the palate, it's quite grippy, a little bit tannic, but it doesn't feel like a wine that is able to last for a long time. So let's do the big reveal. I think this wine number 2, was the best wine, the most expensive wine. I think it had everything a great wine needs: complexity, intensity, and longevity. So this was really stunning. This wine number 1, was only average. So I think it is in the middle, really. But it wasn't a great wine for being in the middle, I think, because it just didn't feel very harmonious. It could have had more harmony, more balance on the palate. I think in Bordeaux you can actually find some great wines in the middle category, and this one wasn't a great example, I think. Wine number 3 was actually the cheapest wine, but it wasn't a bad wine. I think it's quite a fruit-driven, lively wine. If it is what I think it is price-wise, then it's actually a pretty good deal. So let's check whether I'm right. Let's start with this one here. Wine number 3 was the Chateau Le Rossignol Bordeaux wine. It's a €3.40 bottle. I mean, this is German retail. In Germany you can find some really cheap wines on the shelf, and I think it's actually pretty good for that price. So let's move on to wine number 1, which I said was the mid-tier wine, and it is Chateau Ramage La Batis, 2015 vintage, a great vintage, and it's €20, and I think it's actually definitely underperforming in this category. Not necessarily a great wine for this price. So let's check out wine number 2. And wine number 2 is Chateau Batis, 2015, so again a great vintage, and this is a great wine from Pauillac, so from the north of the Medoc. Great region where you can also find Chateau Mouton Rothschild and Chateau Lafite Rothschild. This wine costs $75 or €75, and I think for that price it is actually a pretty good wine. So I really like it. I would definitely find some better wines at the same price point, but it is a really good wine from a great vintage, so I'm happy with this. So thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you liked it, then please like it down here. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't done so already. My question of the day is expensive wine for suckers? Comment down below. I hope I see you guys again soon. Until then, stay thirsty.